Thanks.
Beautiful. I was waiting to see if it said something at the end. Ah, very nice. Beautiful, beautiful. Um, so, ladies and gentlemen, my guest today is John Storie, great guitar player here in Los Angeles, but travels around the world. But as most of our colleagues do, as we have good colleagues. And I'm just doing a few little extra things here, John. Um, just getting up my chat in YouTube, just in case we got YouTube people chatting. Okay, that's it. I'm here. I'm here now. Oh, and of course Taylor Hatch is here. I know you know Taylor.
Oh yeah, nice.
Taylor, he always leads with the questions. I have to kind of look to see where I can fit them in, but he's starting off the day with questions, and he's saying how wonderful you are, and how you inspire him. Ponderosa's great too.
Oh man, it's good to see you. Good to connect with you, Taylor. I hope you're doing well out there, man. It's good to be in touch.
Okay, Taylor, I'll get to your questions pretty quick, but first I just want to kind of, groove in a little bit. So it's Wednesday, April 12th, 2023. John's going out of town tomorrow. Where are you going?
Tomorrow I am going to the DC area
Oh,
actually. Yeah, just for the weekend. Couple gigs out on the East Coast, and I'll be back on Sunday. So been a lot of
I have
traveling this month,
gig.
so I don't know. I don't quite know what time zone I'm in right now. I think I'm still in I just got back from London on Sunday.
Oh,
So
now that
yeah.
takes a minute.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
to get
I'm
back.
actually trying to take advantage of getting up so early in the morning right now, so that when I go east, I'm gonna I guess I'll be kind of in a normal time time zone.
That's kind of crazy. Well, thank goodness it's just tomorrow. So,
Yeah, exactly.
so who are you going with to the East Coast?
We've got some gigs with New West out there.
Oh,
Actually, one gig in Bridgewater, Virginia, at a performing arts center there called the Sipe Center.
cool.
And then Perry and I are going to go up to the Artisan Guitar Festival
Uh-huh.
outside Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, for the afternoon the next day, and then I'll drive back to New York with him, and then come back to LA.
Wow. And then who are you in London with?
I just got back from our our initial record kind of release series of dates with Jeff Goldblum. So I was in London and Berlin and Paris and New York, and then we started off the tour with playing here at the Orpheum Theater and doing some of the late night shows here. So
So
it's been kind
there's a
of like
new
two and a
record,
half weeks of that, and yeah, just got back Sunday.
and there's a new record you guys have.
Yeah, there's a
Oh,
new EP coming out, or it's technically out right now. It's on Decca, so Decca's released in Europe, so the record's out there. It'll be officially out here at the end of April on Verve. It's the same record label, and it's an album called Plays Well with Others, and it's an EP featuring 8 songs with a bunch of guest artists on there, kind of in the same fashion that we've released the last couple records.
cool. Nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It was fun. It's fun to have a new project out with Jeff and to get back to doing some of these dates in Europe that we were doing before
Scheduled
COVID
for,
and everything. It's great to have some of those opportunities back again.
who's in the band now?
So of course Jeff plays keys and leads us up there and does his thing, and then Kenny Elliott plays drums,
Oh,
and Kenny's been playing with Jeff for
long
about
time.
20-25 years. James King's on tenor, and James also has been James has been playing with him since what, 2004, off and on.
Hmm.
I joined the band in 2012, so that's been 11 years, and then um, in 2018, when we did our first record for Decca called the Capitol Studio Sessions. We added for that session Joe Bagg on organ, and Alex Frank ended up playing bass on that. And then they've stayed in the group since, and so organ's become kind of a key part of this group too, which is kind of cool. And then oftentimes we travel with an additional horn player, Scott Gilman, who started playing with us probably in about what was that? It was right before COVID, so 2019. And then it features we feature different vocalists every single time we go on the road, kind of depending on where we go. So it's really a 7-piece group with the addition of somebody on who's like our guest vocalist.
Cool. So you get the vocalist where you're going? Is that what?
Kind of, yeah. Depends. It depends. Sometimes we'll use somebody who's on the East Coast and do a bunch of dates with them. Or this singer Annie Ellicott has sang with us before. She lives in Tulsa. We've had who else? A couple singers in Europe. Of course, Gregory Porter, who lives up in Bakersfield, interestingly enough. But he'll do some dates with us too, depending on what the run of dates.
He lives in
are.
Bakersfield. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, he lives up in Bakersfield. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah.
It says where his whole family is from, he told me. So he has like his mom's there, and yeah, so he lives in Bakersfield. At least that was last time I saw him, that was what he said.
Well,
so
hey. All right, there you go. Okay, so I got to get into at least one Taylor question, okay?
Sure, yeah, shoot.
In your practice, what have you discovered on the guitar that you couldn't do for a while?
Oh, let's see. I think the longer that you play guitar, like you just kind of, there's certain things that just you break in, and that things just get a little bit, just naturally a little bit more effortless. I remember when I studied with Joe DiOrio at USC, I really, and you knew Joe, of course. I know you knew Joe a lot. And Joe was one of these guys that played, I mean, the only word I can really use is just effortlessness. I mean, the guy it was like he was blowing wind through the instrument. He could phrase the way a saxophone player could really phrase, and his picking technique was just, it was so precise. It was like a laser beam on those strings, and yet it looked just like the easiest thing in the world to do. And I remember wondering, back then, I remember wondering, how could I get to that level?
Yeah.
And I did a lot of classical guitar playing when I was a younger kid. I studied a lot of classical guitar and studied classical guitar into college, and always kind of worked on trying to get that natural right hand down. And it took a long time with the picking. And I feel like recently, I don't know if it was because during COVID and stuff in 2020, I didn't play with the rhythm section for months and months and months. I was playing at home a lot, and it kind of, it allowed me to play a lot softer and to not have to be digging in so hard. But I've just noticed recently that I'm starting to feel this looseness in the right hand, and it's helping. I think it helps me when I hear an idea. It helps me get to kind of what I'm targeting for, and of course playing that way, but also getting a nice full sound on the guitar. I think that guitar is a really demanding instrument in terms of just getting like a good sound out of the instrument. So finding that balance where you're playing kind of lighter and then getting a big sound. And yeah, I've noticed that about my playing, even when we just were listening back to the clip right there that Josh and I recorded that was recorded in 2019. I see that my picking is even lightened up since then. So yeah, that's something I feel like recently it's kind of come about, and I don't know if that's just from maturing a little bit more, or getting a few more years under my belt, or just kind of focusing on that a little bit in my practicing.
Yeah, it's really interesting what happens, like when you're a dedicated musician on whatever instrument. I mean, for me, I keep going through, not quickly, but I go through different teachers, and there's different things that happen, and I can go back and listen to a lesson from 5 years ago and get a lot out of it
Right.
now, even now. And it's kind of like what you said. It's of course wind, because I'm a wind instrument, and a string instrument because of the vocal cords, but still wind, and a lightness, like an effortlessness, but you want resonance.
Mm.
And so my girlfriend is here from Australia, and she was singing, and I said, "Oh my God, your pharynx is so open and uninvolved." And she started laughing. She said, "Oh wow, that's the first time anyone ever complimented me on that." And I was fascinated because that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a, uh, kind of a wide open pharynx, but
Mhm.
not involved.
Yeah.
And that's what I keep working towards. And sometimes I win, sometimes I lose, and um, it's a real head trip. The voice is a real head trip too. I mean, I believe other instruments are too, but the voice, it's really a head trip. So anyway, it's fun. It's fun growing and learning. And I mean, guitar players, my joke for guitar players is, like two guys over 80 meet, and one says, "I found a new voicing."
Yeah.
It's like, really? You've been playing 50 years and you found a new voicing? How do
Yeah.
you do that,
That's funny. Yeah. Yeah, we are an odd bunch. We're. Definitely a club, you know.
Yeah.
We're definitely a club of people.
So, yeah, you studied with Joe Diorio, who um, he was just a special human being, and yeah, and he and I did a duo record in a very odd studio,
Yeah.
and then it was actually a voiceover studio, and he
Huh.
was just starting to work with this effect that he liked. So the record company from Italy that we thought would pick it up didn't want it.
Mm.
So then it just sat on the shelf for a long time, and I would reach out every now and then, "Hey, you want to put this out?" And it wasn't until after his stroke that he would listen to it and he said, "This is really pretty. Let's put it out." And I'm so glad, because it was a really beautiful duo record.
That sounds like Joe. Like I remember like, you know, showing up to lesson. I showed up to a lesson once and he had a totally different guitar and Joe was known for playing that beautiful old 175. He also had an L4 that he played which is like a 175. I know I'm talking guitar player terms, but
Yeah.
he had like just this like the classic kind of instrument. And then I showed up one day and he's playing some slim Ibanez 335 kind of guitar like what Schofield plays. And I was like, man, Joe. And he's like, yeah, you know what? And then also, the guitar, a lot of guitars have, two pickups on them. This one just has one right here, but a lot of them have a second one. And he was playing with that back pickup on, so it was a really twangy sound. And he's just like, man, I'm kind of feeling this now. I'm kind of feeling the anti dark tone. And I was just like, man, Joe, that is really something. And it was bright. And he played like that for a few weeks, and then he went back to his other guitar. And then he and Sid Jacobs like drove out to Arizona to go like look for guitar picks made of obsidian rock and mammoth tusk ivory. And like he was just and then he'd come back and be like, man, I found the pick. It's been 50 years and I finally found the pick. Or just all sorts of stuff, man. And I loved that about him. He was just like a child, and you talking about him using like a new effect. Or there's there's the album Bonita that he did where he's playing an electric 12-string guitar,
Oh,
and
wow.
it's really chorusy and funky.
Oh.
And I told Joe, I said, man, how many years did it take for you to tune that guitar before that session? 12 string is like impossible to tune, let alone an electric 12-string guitar. So, but yeah, man, I definitely from him I loved that about Joe. Just that, the possibility of like, yeah, I've been doing this for 40 years. Why not do something totally different today?
Did he use that pick after that, or was that just kind of a?
No, Joe had a whole pocket full of picks, or he had to have this little case that had a ton of picks in it, and he kept them on the amp there in the studio over at USC, and we would sit there and play. I purposely would book my lesson Friday at 5 o'clock. Perry and I would do that because he wouldn't want to sit in the traffic to drive back to Brea, so we'd sit there and play for more like 2 hours, and then we'd walk over to the student university village where there was like this fast food greasy spoon Italian restaurant, and we'd eat this microwaved lasagna, and we'd sit there and talk music with him, and he'd tell us great stories about, of course, he had a million West stories. He had a million stories of Sonny Stitt, playing with him, and Anita O'Day, and really interesting stuff. And we'd hang with him, and by that it'd be like, be 8 o'clock at night. He also he had a graduate course that was like every other semester that was 6 to 8 p.m. on Fridays. So then every other semester it would be like 20 of us guys going over, and kind of Joe would hold court, and he'd sit there and tell us stories. But yeah, in his studio, he always let, it was always a hang. Even if it was your lesson, there would be another guitar player maybe kind of just hanging out, and then you'd hang over into the next lesson, and he would have a whole thing of picks, and before you know it, we'd all be sitting there just playing all these different picks, and he was just like, yeah, this one's made of cork, this one's made of plywood, this one is made from this obsidian thunder egg stone that I got in Utah, this one is made of wood, this, he would have all these different picks, and he was that was a part of the instrument I know he was always really, really fascinated with. And I think, a big part of his sound was just, of course, I mean, how he was playing in that right hand, and he wanted a pick that, he was always like, man, I got to find the pick that sounds like Wes's thumb. That's like the goal. I want to find a pick that sounds like Wes's thumb. Oh man.
I loved that interview. After that gig in Long Beach where you and Perry and Will were playing,
Mm-hmm.
is that the group? The new?
That's New West Guitars. Yeah.
Yeah, New West Guitars. We have to talk about that. But after that gig, and I found out that you guys, I don't know why I didn't know you were doing a blog
Yeah.
or a podcast. And on the way home, I listened to the whole thing with Joe. And it was great. Oh, hi, John Prue. Um, but that was really good. What
Yeah.
are you still doing that podcast, or did you?
No, we do not have time. I mean, between the three of us, I got to start hiring staff if that's the kind of stuff we want to be doing. But we were doing that when COVID shutdown hit, a couple months into it. I said, hey, why don't let's round up a bunch of guitar players and let's do a podcast and let's interview everybody. So, we got the usual suspects together and got some great interviews in the can right away. We got Schofield and Lee Rittenauer and Pete Bernstein and Kuntz, and as big a guys as we could get our hands on. A few other cats that were interested but ultimately weren't able to do it, and then a bunch of other guitar players from the East Coast, West Coast, women guitarists from Europe. Just we wanted to get kind of a wide range of guitar players, and so it's still up there. It's kind of our gift to, in a way, to our community. And a few other guys did some podcasts during the pandemic too that were similar to it. But yeah, High Action, it was really fun because it was a chance for us in New West to still kind of hang and then talk. And Joe was a special one. I remember we figured out how to get Skype linked up through Logic, through all of the interfaces and everything, so that we could get Joe on the phone and record the interview. And it actually, we were surprised at how well it came out. And of course that turned into like a 2-part interview, because there was so much. He shared so much with us that day. And that was very, very special to have had that time with him. And
yeah, we're so lucky.
Yeah.
We're so lucky to have known him, and so many people who have passed on and stuff who are just so great. Yeah, it's really when you know people like that, it makes everything really worthwhile, that we're doing, that where sometimes we work our brains out, we don't get compensated or acknowledged, and but that kind of stuff, just being, having been part of the life of those people and have known some of those people. When I came here, I worked at Dante's as a waitress, and I was 21, and I was
Yeah.
there for a year and a half, and that was still a good moment for Dante's, and I just it just makes me feel, some of those people, like for instance the Condoli brothers. The Condoli brothers were so cool.
Yeah.
They never came on to me. I was 21, never came on to me. They ordered like the top, drink, Courvoisier or whatever, tipped me great, very kind, beautifully, incredibly musical.
Yeah.
Just I mean, that really made part of me. It really was really a beautiful experience getting to know some of the people.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're like,
Conti was hilarious. Conti taught before he passed away. He taught with Bud Shank up at the Port Townsend Workshop when I
oh,
was in high school. This is before 9/11. This is like the summer of
oh,
99, 2000, 2001.
yeah.
I distinctly remember it was the summer of '01 because it was the summer before 9/11, and it was also the summer that Ray Brown passed away. And
Mm.
Ray was supposed to be the guest of honor that year up there, and I was so excited to get to hang out in a masterclass situation with Ray. I had a million questions for him, and I came to that camp so prepared.
Oh,
And then and then he passed. I think it was right around the 4th of July, or it was in the summer, and then the camp was a couple weeks later. And at the last minute, to replace Ray, they got Jim Hall, Joe Lovano, Louis Nash, and George Mraz to
right.
come play from that record that they had just recorded, that album Grand Slam at the Regatta Bar.
Oh,
And they played all that music, and then they worked with all of us. That was my first time meeting Jim, and that was an amazing summer. But Conti was one of the combo teachers, and he was a panic. And I remember one of the kids like asked him about some Jack Sheldon jokes, and he said, "Okay, like I'll tell you guys a few of them, but you can't tell them you got them from me, and don't repeat them to your parents." And like, he was so funny, and getting to see him play with Pete Chrisley and Bud Shank and all of those guys, man, that was really cool to get to hang with them at that camp. Conti sounded great. I loved Connie Condoli. He was a great trumpet player.
what a great camp. That a great opportunity.
Yeah,
That
Eshte was
that's
teaching
amazing.
guitar there at the time,
Oh,
and Ronnie was there, and so that was my introduction to working with Ronnie. And I was just starting. Of course, I was growing up in the Northwest, and I was just starting to wonder if I was going to make my way to either New York or L.A. And getting to meet Ronnie was like, oh, okay, this is kind of the thing in L.A. And yeah, I definitely took it, took deep consideration after those camps to come down here. And then Bud quit that camp. John Clayton came in and still does the camp up there. Bud had passed, and then Bud passed away and stuff. But yeah, Bill Mays taught at that camp, George Cables, a lot of great Seattle musicians up there too. But Conti was one of the combo coaches.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Such a nice guy. Let's do another Taylor question because he has a bunch.
Sure.
What's been the most influential to you when it comes to broadening your solo guitar playing? What are you working on the most?
Oh, well, I I play a lot of solo guitar, um, kind of out of necessity, unless out of like out of like I don't think I'm ever probably going to release a solo guitar record. It just, to me, I it's really fun, it's great. I'm working on some chord melody stuff right now, kind of a curriculum of chord melody teaching. um I love accompanying people. I love playing duo with vocalists and horn players, and playing in groups, playing with other guitar players, of course. But yeah, for me, it's kind of the necessity is kind of the mother of invention for me with solo guitar, trying to find ways of playing solo guitar that are interesting, for me, because I find myself when I'm playing a lot of solo guitar, often often the audience is just me. It's like I'm playing in a situation where I'm having to play solo at a casual gig or something like that versus on a concert hall stage. Sometimes I'm in a recital situation, maybe at the college where I teach, where I play solo guitar for a bunch of people at once. But yeah, I mean, I'm always just trying to find different textures. And again, with like my right hand, I'm trying to kind of like let go of the pick more when I play solo guitar, not use a pick very much, and get a really nice full sound with my fingers in the right hand. And I've also in the past, not so much right now, but in the past, I've experimented a lot with some alternate tunings, some of the Nashville tunings, some of the open chord tunings, or dadgad tuning, or an open F chord tuning. And my baritone guitar, I've gone on some solo guitar gigs where I bring a baritone, so all of a sudden now I'm a transposing instrument. I'm playing down a fourth. So those kinds of textures and sounds kind of inspire me a little bit. But yeah, a lot of my focus with my instrument is preparing myself to either accompany someone, and play well to support somebody in an accompaniment role, or playing in a way that really helps lead a group in a certain situation, and creating ideas that are melodic and that build and go somewhere and take, whatever that musical moment is, take the whole group in that direction. So I'm always kind of working on those two. I don't spend a ton of time at home just coming up
doing
with
that. Yeah.
solo guitar arrangements. Yeah.
I want to, I'd like to go hear some New West because, um, let's see, New West, what's the third word?
Well, New West Guitars. For a long time, the group, we started in 2003. It was the New West Guitar Quartet. It was a four-part guitar ensemble. In 2009, we went to a trio, and for a minute, we just called it New West,
Uh,
which was a little vague. And then we went to New West Guitar Group, and then we've rebranded ourselves for this concert season, and so now we're New West Guitars. So it's
okay.
a bunch of different stuff, but it's all the same iteration. Perry and I formed a group, and then other members have been Brady Cohan and Matt Roberts, and Jeff Stein was in the group for a long time, and then Will joined the group in 2015. So the current version of the band, actually, I think the current form of the band has been the longest form of the band from 2015 to 2023. So the group's really been around for 20 years now. It's going back to our USC days.
Here's one from 5 years ago, live, which looks like Perry. Is that Perry and Will?
Yeah, that's Perry and Will. Yep, that's us in Iowa at the Premier Guitar office. Yep.
Most of the other ones look like they're from 8 years ago. So should I play that one or should I?
Yeah, probably the best one to play. Maybe if you roll up a little bit. We've got the Rule the World video is kind of cool.
You mean this way, rule the world?
Yeah, or Wichita Lineman, or any one of those. How about Blue Rondo a la Turk, the K and KX, the one that we did in Seattle, right there. That's cool. Yep.
Okay.
Perry Smith, John Storie, and Will Brum. It's the New West Guitar Group live on KPLU.
Very cool. Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah, that was a fun day. I actually remember we were on tour that day, and it was snowing in Seattle. It was really cold. It was like January, and I remember like rushing into the studio with all of our gear, and we didn't plan on that tour to be in like freezing cold weather. I remember that. That was a long time ago now, but yeah, that's New West. Yeah.
Such a great group. I mean, so in your development of songs, you, I mean, I would imagine that the arrangements come about in different ways. But one way, if you were together, you would all play it, and then as you're playing, somebody would say, "Hey, how about breaking here for blah blah blah?" Or is that sometimes what happens?
Well, we actually write out the arrangements pretty detailed, and then record all three parts, and then send them to everybody. And I kind of like a lot of our tunes kind of have a more of expansive sound with acoustic guitars, and I use the baritone guitar in that group as well. And I'm the only one that has a baritone, so I'm going to probably be the only one who writes a baritone part for myself, and then give other parts to the other guys. And a lot of times when we're bringing in music, we think about other songs we're currently doing, and I'll be like, oh, it'd be nice to feature Will on an acoustic guitar in the set. So this could be like, I'll write something for Will to play acoustic, me to play baritone, and Perry to play his box. Or we've been kind of going back a little bit to our roots with playing really straight ahead arrangements of standards, like we do I Remember April, and After You've Gone, Without a Song. We do a lot of these kinds of tunes now, Sophisticated Lady. And of course, that's a lot of fun, because we just stay on our boxes and we just play like very, very traditional. One of the biggest challenges in that group is all the guitar switches, and going from an acoustic guitar to a jazz box to a baritone and to a different tuning to all the different rhythm accompaniment stuff that happens in that group, beyond just like right there we're all kind of doing 4 to the floor stuff, which is pretty basic in its design, but to keep the groove and everything sounding big and full is really challenging. So when we write arrangements, we really think about that a lot. And I think we all think a little bit about each individual person's strengths, because we all three of us have a different approach to rhythm guitar, and we want to take advantage of that. But also, I might not write a rhythm guitar part that I would play and then just give it to Will. Just, I would write a rhythm guitar part I feel like he would sound great playing rhythm guitar on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because Perry, of course, lives on the East Coast too, so there's got to be some, something ahead of time. But I think I talked to you guys, and sometimes like you'll pull out something when you're together, or play something fresh and new that you haven't played before on a gig or something. Is that right?
Well, sometimes we've played tunes before. We'll just get up and like, hey, let's play a tune.
Yeah.
But we don't do that in our concerts very much. We'll do that like in a clinic situation.
Oh, right.
We did back in the day, way back in the day with New West, back when we were in our early 20s and just like doing crazy shit on the road, absolutely nuts, like driving through 8 states in my 97 Ford Escort and Perry's 99 Saturn. And we were driving for 4,000 miles a summer, playing in the most random juke joints and bars and theaters and puppet show venues and schools and music stores and train stations. I mean, we were playing in some cool stuff. Granted, 2006, 7, and 8 were really tough years economically, like the country was going through a major financial crisis. So we're out there, we're making no money. We spent a month in Europe. We were in Berlin and played this carnival for a week in Berlin, and then just illegally played gigs out there that we weren't supposed to play under our visa. I hope the German authorities aren't watching our feed. But Anyway, and during those times, we did one show up at Kumbwa in Santa Cruz entirely free. We got up and played entirely free. I think we did well. Actually, we did half the show, some of our arrangements, and then we did half the show free. And then we played some epic house concerts that summer, and a couple of those we played entirely free. So I mean, we went that direction for a little bit. And then I was working a lot in the mid 2000s with David Pritchard. Do you know David at all?
David Pritchard. I don't know. Wait, Pritchard. Was he a musician from L.A.?
He lives here in L.A. He's well known for having a tune in the Real Book. He has a tune called Henninger Flats that's in the actual old school Real Book.
Yeah, I think when I was young here, he was in the scene.
Yeah, well, he played with Gary Burton for a hot minute, and Gary Burton played Henninger Flats, and that's why that tune ended up in the Real Book. But David is really a minimalist composer, and he had an acoustic guitar quartet that was steel string guitars, and it was Steve Reich type of writing where it was very motoric and very layered. And there was a period where I was really inspired by that and wrote a lot of songs for New West in that style. It didn't really have like a designated rhythm guitar part as much as it was just like really just modern chamber music. And we did some concerts where that stuff was featured. We did some concerts with some guest artists around that time. We did we did movie score music where we did concerts to film. Right after Hurricane Katrina, we got all of this in 2005. We got all this footage of the disaster of the hurricane, and we went over to the Barnsdale Gallery Theater here in Los Feliz, and we did a whole concert where we scored all this music to all the footage of it, and we did the whole concert live with the film. So we were doing some pretty far out stuff outside of jazz, but then then we moved our way back a little bit, but the arranging always was coming from a place of like, let's learn these parts, play memorized, get up there and play everything totally memorized. And nowadays we've done more since 2016. We've been doing more collaborations with vocalists. We did a record called Send One Your Love with Tierney Sutton, Gretchen Parlato, Becca Stevens, Peter Eldridge, Sarah Gazarek, and they featured them on the record. And then we did some touring where we had some of them. Sarah's done some gigs with us, Tierney's done some gigs with us, and and currently we have been collaborating with Leah Zager, and she's been playing violin and singing. So the group lends itself pretty well to those kinds of collaborations because it's just three guitars, So,
yeah. Leah Zager, I don't know her.
Oh, she's great. Yeah, Leah is a virtuosic violinist. She's her big thing is that she's been Hans Zimmer's main violinist and touring with Hans, doing the whole world tour where he's been playing all of his movie music with full orchestra, and she's been the featured soloist in that. She's a great violinist, and she really can improvise. She's a great player too. So it's been fun to like work up some of these solis with her on violin. It's interesting sound. So kind of harkens to Stefan Grappelli and Django.
Very nice. I like that.
So that's New West. It's been one heck of a ride. We've done, oh my gosh, I think we've done 11 records and one live concert DVD back when you could sell concert DVDs. And our earliest record was recorded to ADAT. That's how long ago that was, That
was a while.
And I've got mini discs of the group and stuff. But yeah, we for a while we released stuff on Summit Records based out of Arizona. Nice record label over there. And then of course we've just done a lot of stuff independently since, and a lot of our own video content. We still maintain our Patreon page. We do a lot of teaching together when we're on the road. And it's just been an epic journey of 20 years.
Big part of your life, actually.
Yeah, it has been. I never thought we would go this far with it out of school. It was such a great gateway from school to the real world, because while we were in college, of the four of us, Brady and Perry and Matt and I, we were all graduating in different years. So when one person would go out into the real world, they were pretty inspired to book a lot of gigs. So we were, a couple of us were doing the school thing and the gigging thing, and yeah, USC, man, USC gave us so many opportunities. They gave us a grant to do a recording. They sent us to Japan to represent the school. They helped funded our first trip to Europe. I mean, and then gave us a ton of press. They got us mentioned in the LA Times and all sorts of stuff early on, and kind of seated New West next to where the LA Guitar Quartet has, of course, had an amazing career in the classical guitar world, and we've always been kind of like USC's version of the jazz version of the LAGQ. If you put it like that, I guess. I don't know.
Well, that's nice. So, yeah, that's I'm just kind of trying to think about that. Like if I had like a very intense group that was really working, and most of my life has been me creating stuff.
Yeah.
Like I always joke that if my dad was a sax player, if he had told me that I was going to be responsible for most of my jobs, I might not have gone into music.
Yeah.
But I didn't know, and then by the time I actually realized that, it was too late. I was just I was in there.
Yeah.
Not that I'm unhappy with it. It's just that it's like, yeah, man, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to put.
And that was part of the motivation with New West, was this idea that we're a partnership, and so we divvied up a lot of work. And Perry and I, through all these decades now, have done a ton of booking, to the point where people reach out to us and ask us if we would help them book tours. I teach a whole class, a whole seminar on concert booking, which I've kind of been reworking with kind of a post-COVID mindset now a little bit, because it's changed a lot. Even just in the past couple of years, it's changed a ton. But just to have a teammate and have somebody that helps deadlines happen and helps, we would always aim like, okay, let's really aim to book these weeks and do touring then. Of course, that's gotten a lot harder because I'm on the road with 5 other groups right now, and I'm not technically full-time at the community college, but I have pretty much a full-time load. And so does Perry. And then I'm doing a ton of other music related stuff besides that, and it gets to be a lot. But even in all of that, like, we are still planning a lot of dates, and there's always something kind of coming up around the pike. And and it's been a group. It's just, I was just shedding the music this morning for the tour this weekend, and some of these arrangements, I mean, we've played some of these arrangements for so long Bush was in office. It's hard to imagine, I mean, but yeah, that long ago, 2007, 2006. If you put it in those terms, it really makes me feel old now. I'm not a young and up and coming, which is, we always joke with that group, some of these presenters we've worked with since 2006 and 7, and they'll remain nameless because I don't want to call anybody out, but God damn it, we go play these gigs still, and they're like, oh yeah, they're really up and coming. And I'm like, well, wait a minute here. Now, we've been doing this 20 years. What are we up and coming to? I mean, we're doing this. This is what we do. This is funny. It's really funny.
It's all part of social media and marketing.
Well, and I think people are kind of like flabbergasted at the idea of like, man, this is an original group, all 3 playing the same instrument, committing to doing that at a high level and putting on a good show. We really try to put on a great show when we do a concert. We want people, when they come to see New West, to be, getting the whole effect of it. And, I just think people who've known us for a long time are, always just kind of like, wow, they're still going for it. And that's what we do as musicians. We always just go for stuff. And, but yeah, we've had some great opportunities. I'm really excited about some of these gigs coming up. We're also playing the Muckenthaler in Fullerton right before Memorial Day. So if anybody wants to come check us out here in SoCal, we'll be over in Fullerton at the end of May.
Oh, cool. Taylor, here's a Taylor question. What do you think about the direction of jazz education and where it's going?
Oh man, I'm really positive about stuff. I think that um, you know, jazz education is happening everywhere, from TikTok and Instagram and YouTube all the way to a doctorate level in a college. And there's so many resources for young musicians to learn this music. And you know, like everything in the information age, there's as much bad stuff as there is amazing stuff out there. And I think that we have to kind of use our cognitive learning skills as people to like determine early on, like, is this a legitimate source or not? And you know, I also kind of like it. It seems like there still continues to be a drumbeat in the jazz community of, make sure you're listening to the music, go back and listen to the original recordings, listen a lot, transcribe from the record, learn the solos, copy, imitate, emulate what they did in the 50s and the 40s and even earlier, or even just past in. And you know, it's cool. I think that's really cool that we are all as a community still so dedicated to teaching younger people about how the music started. And you know, yeah, so I think jazz education is going in a great direction. I think that I think a lot of higher ed right now in general is kind of facing a bit of an identity crisis in our country, and I feel like higher ed's going to be changing a lot in the next 10, 15, 20 years. I think we're going to be moving more towards vocational schools rather than universities, and I think that could be a good thing for musicians because you know, really, I mean, I don't know, maybe you should have an undergraduate in music where you spend 2 years in a classroom and then you spend 2 years in the field and then you get your degree. And then once you've done that, then you can maybe go get a master's degree, but only after you've really proven that you've been out there and like actually played like a gig, you know? And I think there's a parallel to that, because like in tech, the coding world, like that's what they're doing. There are these coding boot camps where people are learning code and then they work for a startup and then they get the certificate from Google or whatever. And I think that could be a really good thing for music, for getting degrees in jazz and stuff. So it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting to see what happens. Of course, I love teaching the community college level, and I've got some great students up at Pierce College here in LA, and yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of people studying music in community college because it's so affordable, and there's, you know, the level continues to get higher and higher. It's community college today is not what community college was 10, 15, 20 years ago. It is like the level is really high with the students.
Yeah. Let's listen again. Let me see. By the way, today's Will's birthday.
Oh shoot, I thought it was tomorrow. Oh my god, it is April 12th. No way. That's right. Happy birthday, Will.
Let's see. So, let's see. Where are I don't know what YouTube does. Oh, here we go. Wichita Lineman. You mentioned that one.
Yeah, I love that song. That was a song I'd always wanted to bring into New West. And then when I got a baritone guitar, I was like, now's the time.
Or Everybody Wants to Rule the World. Oh,
that
here
one,
you are at Sam First, too.
Yeah. Yeah, New West played at Sam First. That's right. Yeah.
What about, I love Everybody Wants to Rule the World. Although Wichita Linesman is a really good song, too.
Sure, yeah. You know, Rule the World might be cool to check out because it's a cover of a pretty poppy tune.
I love this song.
Yeah.
That's really nice. Now, I don't know the third guy. Who's the third guy? Sorry, can't hear you.
Sorry, I was using talking with my hands. That video was done a year or two before Will joined the group, and that was Jeff Stein on guitar. Jeff has since Jeff's on the East Coast now. He still plays a little bit. He actually went into he pursued law actually later on. But yeah, he was a guitar player. He went to USC. He was in the studio guitar department just after I was there. Yeah, that was Stein. So I know it's funny. There's some videos that the guy that did that video is a pretty well-known camera operator by the name of Dave Frederick. I met him years ago, doing musical directing for the Society of Camera Operators Awards show. And Dave has been a huge supporter of New West for years, and he brought all these cameras down there, and we just went rogue and just filmed right there in Santa Monica and pulled the guitars out and did it. And man, that video came out really great. That continues to be one of kind of our good promo videos. Unfortunately, Will's not in it, but it's,
Well, also, are you playing along with tracks that were recorded already? Because I noticed no guitars were plugged in.
Yeah, it's a music video. Yeah. Yeah, we did a whole bunch of them that day. We did one under the pier like that. We did the Wichita Lineman up at Chapman Leonard Studios in North Hollywood, which is the Chapman Leonard is where they have all of these giant cranes that they use on major film shoots. So they had a 75-foot boom crane that they brought out there and put a camera on it and swooped it down right to where we were. Of course, this is 2014. This is before the era of drones and but it's a cool shot, and they were very, very, very cool to literally just let us use millions of dollars of equipment for an afternoon up there to do that. But yeah, I love doing that. I love doing the music video thing as a guitar player where we're playing along to the track. To me, it's more of an art piece than it is anything else. I mean, it's obviously different than like the first thing that you showed with Josh and I, where we're actually playing there.
Yeah.
But I love doing music video stuff as a guitar player.
Yeah. Dan has posted some videos, you and Jeff Goldblum and you and Leia. And Taylor wants to know what the funniest gig you experienced with Jeff Goldblum was.
Funny, as in the funniest gig. Like, I wonder, like, does he mean like strangest gig? I wonder. Well, I think early on, like when I was first joining the group. I mean, did you ever go hang at Lucky 7, Cathy, or did you see Jeff back in the 90s and 2000s when he was playing with Anthony Wilson and those guys? And
well, I didn't see him at Lucky 7, but I did
Sunset Plaza, the older that club that was upstairs there at Sunset Plaza.
I went to the Silver Lake Club.
Oh yeah, Rockwell. Well, that was a lot later. Yeah. Well, anyway,
I went to Catalina's, but I don't even know if you were in the band at that.
No. Wait. Oh well. Wait. We did one thing at Catalina's. We did a benefit at Catalina's.
Well, not that one. I mean the old Catalina's.
Oh no. Yeah. No, I would not have. I didn't play with Jeff at the old one on Cahuenga. No.
Yeah, because I think I was very young too.
Yeah. So I would say the funniest gig. Well, the in the early days, the gig was much more loose, and we would just call tunes, and Jeff would kind of read them out of the real book, and it was really just a jam. It was just a hang, and you remember Tim Emmons, of course.
Yep.
Yeah, I love Tim. Tim's now in Colorado, of course. So Tim was on the gig at the time, and we would have some random singers come up and just want to sing a tune with us, almost as this is before the days of selfies and Instagram and all of that.
Right. Right.
It was just people were just, you know, had a drink or two, and then they wanted to come up and sing a song with us. And one night I remember a woman came up on stage and she said, "I want to sing Fever." And I'm like, okay, big red flag already, right? So Tim and I look at each other, and Jeff's like, all right, well, let's do it. Why not? And so we get like about 4 bars into that song, and Tim, we had another mic over there, and Tim grabbed the mic and was like, "And thank you, that was great. Let's all give her a big round of applause." And that kind of began this thing we did in the early days where we would kind of fish hook. We would purposely have anybody who wanted to come up and sing a song. And, you know, sometimes honestly, Cathy, we get some really good singers to come up and sing, and like some younger singers that would know tunes, and really, really sound great. So it wasn't like it was a shit show, but we would every now and then get one up there that was a little out, and we'd be like, and give you a fish hook. But you know, that ended when I would say like 2014 and 15, when we you know, Instagram was really blowing up in it surpassed Facebook in about 2014 or 15 because of the video and Vine. People were doing 6-second videos on Vine and Periscope and all these video sharing apps, you know. And so people were posting that they were at the Jeff Goldblum Jazz Night, and everyone was like, "Where is this? I want to come to that." Right. So then we started being like, "Okay, let's feature a vocalist. Let's, you know, have somebody come up and be a featured vocalist that night, and not just do the whole thing." Because, you know, it's funny once or twice, but, you know, after a while it's like, but yeah, you know, Jeff's got amazing taste, and the thing I love about him is he's a natural improviser with everything. So he can make like a situation for normal people that would be really awkward, like, I don't know, you're in line at Starbucks and somebody cuts in front of you, and, you know, the normal person might be kind of mad about it, or kind of like mug them, or be like, what the heck? But Jeff has a way of taking any situation and making it really funny, and making it really like totally chill and totally in control. Like, that guy's in every kind of situation you can imagine yourself in, and you're like, I don't know what to do, I'm stuck in this situation. That guy knows. He's such a good improviser. He knows how to really, you know, work his way through a lot of situations. And so he's an awesome guy to be on the bandstand with, because we'll be up there and we are improvising. We've got our arrangements. We really have worked hard in that group to really craft the arrangements in a way that are interesting tunes that feature Jeff in a really cool way, and feature all of us in a cool way. And so we take that very seriously. But, you know, from one night to the next, we don't know what kind of bits we're going to be doing. We don't know what kind of banter we're going to be doing with him on stage. So, you know, it's hard for me to pinpoint what the funniest gig is. I mean, there's been some gigs that have just been so hilarious. You know, Bob Odenkirk came and sat in with us one night and tricked Jeff into thinking that he played trumpet. And my cover page on Facebook is the picture. Somebody took a photo right there of Trevor Ware and me and Bob Odenkirk and Goldblum. And Bob tricked Jeff into thinking.
Share that. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, Bob tricked Jeff into thinking he was like a really great trumpet player. And so the whole night, Bob would come up on stage and he'd be like, "Okay, I'm going to take a chorus. Here we go." And he would go to the mic and he would put the trumpet on the microphone. And then he'd walk away and be like, "Oh, you take it. You take it." And it was all night. And by the end of the night, it was, yep, that's from that gig right there. That's at Rockwell. And oh my God, I was in tears laughing so hard that night. Unbelievable. Wow. And my buddy on there was like, "Wait a minute, Bob Odenkirk plays trumpet?"
That's hysterical.
Yeah. And the funny part was Jeff was like, "Well, you know, I've heard Bob plays great trumpet. You know, he's told me he was a jazz trumpet player, you know." And I said, "Well, you know, let's see, you know." And then Bob told us in the band a little bit ahead of time what he was going to really do. He's just like, "Okay, here's what I'm going to do." So let's all play into that. Man, that was great. That was so funny. Absolutely hilarious.
I didn't go enough. I went several times to that gig, and And when I was young, I went to the old Catalinas,
Yep.
you know, because that was, like you said, it was a jam. It was a hang.
Yep.
It was fun.
Yep.
And uh, yeah, that was when Jeff was pushing a button to change keys.
Uh-huh.
That was how long ago that was. And
Yeah.
then, but I thought at the Rockwell, I was so impressed with Jeff, his communication with the crowd.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh
warm and
man.
friendly and inviting, and yeah, a lot of people were really happy to be there. You know, it was
Oh
really
man,
fun.
it got so epic right up to when COVID struck. You know, we were
Yeah.
there the Wednesday before the big
Oh,
lockdown
really?
shutdown, and you know, there were some years. We started at Rockwell in 2013. 2015, Jeff filmed 3 movies in a row. I think he did Hotel Artemis, Le Weekend, and Grand Budapest Hotel. So we didn't have a single gig from like, I think we did a gig around Valentine's Day that year, and then we didn't have anything until Christmas because he was off filming. And I remember how bummed out I was. And then he came back, and then we played, man, 2016, 2017 into 2018. And then 2018 was when the whole record deal really happened for him, where Universal wanted to do a record. And it kind of initially, I think, started with Gregory Porter and him talking about doing something together, and then it's been a whole nother level since then. But Rockwell was so great because it gave us a chance to play every week, and Jeff, you know, was right down this, you know, it was really easy for him to get over there, and you know, it kind of became a bit of a touristy thing. People would come from who were from out of town,
Yeah.
but yeah, a lot of people in our scene would go hang and support and hang there, and yeah, I mean, I met so many people
Yeah.
in that. I mean, I guess you could say it was really 7 years of playing there, six and a half, 7 years of it. I met so many people from all over the place. It was really, really a cool weekly gig to have. And now, you know, now Jeff's really, he's not been around right now, but when he's been around, we've been playing over at the Pendry Hotel in on Sunset there, where the old House of Blues used to be. And
Oh, I don't even know
um
that place.
yeah, the sun rose, but also, you know, we've had some bigger gigs recently,
Uh-huh.
which we've had to kind of commit to, where it's been kind of our featured performance. So like the Orpheum and Disney Hall, and
Right,
we're
right.
playing Segerstrom Concert Hall here in July. So those are some, you know, it's kind of like we're going now towards, instead of doing the weekly gig, now we're doing like one huge gig in LA a year or something, and that's cool.
Yeah.
That's fun, you know.
Yeah. There's some other things that you're with too, right? You're with a what did it say? A up and coming singer, a guy singer. Your bio said.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, other people I've worked with. I'm
You're
still
working
working a
with
lot with Spencer Day.
Spencer
Um,
Day. Yeah, I
yeah,
don't.
Spencer and I go back to 2009, and yeah, we're best buds. Spencer's an amazing songwriter, great vocalist, and yeah, we released a record in 2021 called Broadway by Day.
Uh-huh.
It features a lot of Broadway tunes, and Ryan Shaw's on that. Um, Gary Matsumoto, Alex Frank, myself. Um, so yeah, that's fun. Gilbert Castellanos, I think, is on one track. But yeah, Spencer's been a delight to work with. You know, that's something I feel really lucky. I like with New West and Spencer and Goldblum. You know, I don't know. I feel like it's harder for musicians these days to stick with playing with an artist for an extended period of time, because all of us are doing so many things at once. So you might be in a project for like a year and then never do that again, and not and I just, man, I feel really lucky. I've gotten to play with people for a long period of time, because as a guitar player, when you work with a vocalist for 10 years, you just really learn so much about accompanying, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And that, yeah, so Spencer's one of those guys. I tour a bit with Sarah McKenzie too, when she's got stuff in around the US. We had a fun run of dates last fall. I've been working more with Ann Hampton Calloway.
Uh-huh.
which is great. I love playing with her and working with Trey Henry, and that's a great group of people. Um, done some gigs with Clayton Hamilton Jazz Orchestra the last couple years, which has been really fun again to work with John, who was one of my teachers at USC, and Jeff Hamilton, of course, one of my heroes, amazing player. And so yeah, I've been busy. I've been trying to keep up with all of that, and then I didn't really get to properly tour my record because I had a bunch of dates booked into 2020. They were all canceled. So I've kind of been searching again for what I want to do. I'm kind of thinking about doing maybe a little bit of a trio project and maybe recording something a little later this year. So yeah, that's all of that stuff has been kind of my main touring and live gigging stuff right now.
Interesting life, interesting
Yeah.
choices, you know, things come up. We're kind of led by what comes up, and then we have inspirations and desires to create stuff, and then we go ahead and create stuff. Being on the road, that's you really have to get up the gumption to do that because it's, you know, for people, I would say for people like you and me, it's you have to create it. You have to get the idea and start working on it, and then you may attract things, but you really gotta do it. You gotta rise to the occasion, you know.
Oh yeah, and I always wanted to be playing a ton, and I knew that even living in LA or New York meant that, you know, you'd play some concerts here, but you'd really be playing, you know, being on the road to really play. You got to be on the road. And so I kind of tried to design my other stuff I do around that. So trying to make my teaching as flexible as possible, trying to make other commitments, other people I work with, you know, working as flexible as possible. I think that's been one of the benefits to the whole 2020 thing is there's so much more remote recording now, and you know, I've just, you know, I can work on stuff or teach lessons when I'm wherever, and that's been huge. It's been great. I kind of blame the whole thing on myself because in January of 2020, I wrote my goal sheet out that year, and right at the top of the sheet, I said, teach more lessons online, you know, so I still have that, and I it's my fault, you know, I wished upon a star and it came true. So then we all taught online, you know, but
I actually just got an idea while we're talking.
mhm.
I've often wanted to do this. I haven't fully done this, and I've done a million workshops. I've had hundreds of guest clinicians that do my workshops over the years. I did like something like 16 years of workshops every weekend.
Wow.
You know, so anyway, but what I really wanted, and I wonder if you'd be into this, you know, and it would obviously be, you know, a time that was easy, and it's not a big ordeal, but like an accompaniment workshop. I would like to have student guitar players or piano players and get together with my student vocalists and have them work together and have us, you know, comment and critique and teach. I think it's super valuable. You know,
Oh yeah, for sure.
maybe we can do that.
I'd love that. Yeah, you know, it is interesting how I find it hard to inspire even my most serious jazz students. I find it hard to inspire them to practice accompanying, you know, to really sit down and practice that by themselves, you know. So I encourage a lot of my college students, like, have a vocal partner, have a saxophone partner, have a drum partner, somebody that you're practicing with. So dedicate individual practice time where you're working on your instrument, but also dedicate actual time during the week where you guys commit to practicing together. Because I feel like with New West, you know, going back to that, you know, we were in essence, we were practicing together those years in college. It's such formative years for your playing, and a lot of, you know, 90% of the time I'm playing chords, I'm playing groove, and then there's, you know, the moment where I'm soloing, but then really practicing accompaniment. And yeah, that's something I feel really strong with jazz education. We've got to, like, especially help vocalists find the right fit. So, like, what makes a guitar player or a piano player a good fit for you, but maybe they wouldn't be the best fit for someone else, or vice versa, learning about that. And then learning, like, actual accompaniment skills beyond just common sense stuff. I mean, I'm always shocked at, like, when I hear students sometimes, and they guitar players, and they just play too loud, and I'm like, just got to turn down. You can't play that loud and accompany. You have to play under them, or they they cross over the melodic line that the singer's singing and get into their range, and then all of a sudden there's some weird things, and then I can tell that maybe the vocalist is really concentrating on themselves, so they're not really even hearing it, and both people up there are, like, not really hearing that
Right.
they're really clashing.
Yeah.
And then just, like, sticking to one idea when you're accompanying somebody. Like, if I'm going to play chords with a little bit of an implied bass line now and then, just stay there. Don't, like, think about every 8 bars I've got to go from that. Okay, now I got to play some weird 2-part invention thing, and then go to 4 to the floor, and then go back to bass and chords, and then go to just chords, then go to just bass. It's like schizophrenic accompaniment. It's like really sticking to one approach
Yeah.
with accompanying, and making the simplicity of that so good, so undeniably good. And aren't we lucky? I feel like with Joe, and even Frank Potenza is an awesome accompanist. I remember seeing Frank and Joe play duo a lot at USC, and man, those guys sounded so great together. Or Shelley Berg with Frank. Of course, Metheny came and worked with us for 2 weeks at USC, and it was a whole different side of Pat Metheny, seeing Pat comp for Joe, and it just blew my mind how.
How about I saw Mick Goodrick and Joe.
There you go. And that record, Rare Birds, that they did together,
Yeah.
is really, really interesting. But in their own way, how modern they were playing, they also really stuck to the modern way of playing. They didn't go from playing modern to, like, all of a sudden walking bass line and playing chords. They stayed there. They stayed in their lane. They stayed with their vision. So yeah, that's hard. It's hard to teach, like, from a teaching standpoint. I find it really hard to teach people to do that. I feel lucky that my mom was a musician. My Nana, my grandma, was a musician. And some of the earliest pieces of advice they both gave me about this music was learn how to accompany and make other people sound good on guitar, and learn how to get a full sound, and how to play in a really nice way so that you can support other people, so that you have opportunities to go sit in with other musicians, because then other musicians will want you to sit in with them if you sound good.
It's so good to have the awareness of listening to the person you're playing with. It sounds like a duh thing, but I mean, when I was doing my jam session for 16 years, no matter how good or bad the singer was, if they were not listening to the band sounded worse.
Oh yeah, well, for sure.
And that was so amazing. It was such an interest, and the singer didn't even have to be good, but if they were listening, all of a sudden it became, a whole piece together, instead of, like you said, just crashing and burning. Barry Zweig was especially good at accompaniment.
Yes.
He was really good.
Yeah, I mean, all of those guys from that. I mean, I there's some other guitar players from of that generation who didn't live in LA. This guy Kenny Poole, who was from Cincinnati, amazing accompanist. Cal Collins was really great. George Van Epps was amazing. Bucky Pizzarelli, they're all great accompanists, awesome accompanists. And yeah, Barry had that pedigree. John has that pedigree, of course.
Yeah.
That's one of the first things I learned from Pisano, was listening to just how nice he comps.
Really, yeah.
And it's I don't know if it's, I dare I say it's a lost art form in modern jazz, but I hear again, like, a lot of great young guitar players out there who are just totally tearing it up and playing this instrument in such a developed way.
Yeah.
And yet a lot of it is very single note based, or it's very much based on the fact that I'm just going to lead. And then when it comes time to comp, in a lot of those situations, they don't play. They don't play. They rest. And maybe that's because the space of when they're not soloing that's the contrast they want. And I respect that. I think that's cool. But, Jim Hall, man, I mean, you listen to how he comps. Oh my God, so beautiful, so great. And I don't know if it's maybe guitar players, our instrument is kind of evolved out of the rhythm section and even more into the horn, area of an ensemble.
Well, also, I mean, for me, um, guitar has always been my item to sing with. And I noticed over the years of teaching that singers are quite, at least half of the singers coming up are very intimidated by singing with guitar. They don't, the piano is more solid for them. It comes in at some other hearing level and maybe feeling level, something. But even if it's a light piano player, light touch piano player, but guitar, it's the harmonic thing. And I don't know what I don't even know what it is. But anyway, I think it's kind of divine. I love it. Singing with Ted Green was incredible, but he was also a great accompanist.
Yeah.
And he took whoever he was playing with and made it part of the harmony and everything.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he was, yeah.
That's a whole nother level there. Yeah. Of course, Ted. I mean, man,
Yeah. But
much.
we should do it. I'd love to. Maybe we could do it at Kulak's too. It's just
that'd be
really,
great. That'd be great.
really
There'd be a lot
fun.
to talk about. There'd be a lot of good examples and bad examples. Be a lot of good and bad.
One time somebody said to me, "Why don't you have a bad player at your workshop so we can know what it's like?" I'm like, "Yeah, really? I'm going to promote that? Here's a bad player."
Well, I was in an interesting clinic environment once when I was 16. I was asked to be clinicked by Terrell Stafford, the great trumpet player, and this was up in Portland. And it was in front of a bunch of graduate students. And the reason why was it was a clinic about clinicking, And so in a way, it was like they weren't going to get a graduate student up there to play. They weren't going to get, Terrell Stafford, of course, awesome, great, burning player. They could have got any number of person who would want to be clinicked by Terrell, maybe another trumpet player, right?
Yeah.
But they got me, and me and my buddies in high school. And I was so nervous. I brought like a wire music stand and my damn reel book, and I'm up there with the reel book and I'm trying to read Stella by Starlight, and and he's like, "Okay, first thing, let's get rid of this reel book. Let's get rid of that. Okay, what do you know? Blues? Okay, play that and play it memorized." And I felt like I was thrown into the fire, but it was good. It was a really good experience. But it was also like he was talking to the students about like, okay, this is how you clinic someone who's at this level. So it was kind of interesting to hear. He wasn't even really clinicking me. It was more about clinicking people of my age.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah.
Okay, that'd be hard to do that, unless it's in that kind of super academic environment.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Now seeking weak jazz vocalist and so-so guitar player for clinic on how not to accompany. I'd be curious to see who would respond to that. Oh,
Well,
man.
teaching is so funny. I mean, especially for vocalists. Vocalists are, they have so many things to deal with. It's like they're standing up in front of people. Everybody's paying attention to them. They have to know the words. They have to feel the words. They have to, sound somewhat in voice. They have to be aware of the musician. The more they know, the better it is. But I mean, it's an awful lot that singers, and for me, it's like I get very empathetic, like how how are they visualizing what's going on, And in fact, I was just talking about this morning. In a studio situation, I love having the engineer be a musician and having the input that they can have, right? That I'm not going to have probably, right? I'm not an engineer. I'm not really a musician. I'm not, I don't know who sounds good in the studio to add, I mean, I have my own arrangement ideas, but they're going to have theirs. However, they are a musician or instrumentalist, blah, blah, blah. I hate that differentiation, but anyway,
Yeah.
they're an instrumentalist. I am a singer. So when we're leading a singer, it's really important to have me too, because I know how a singer thinks, really thinks, and I'm going to explain to them what the instrumentalist just explained in a different way so that they can get it,
Yeah. Well, and it's hard for me when I've got some great vocal students right now at the college. They're just naturally great at singing, and teaching them how to lead is hard because it's a socially awkward thing to get up there and be like, okay, here we go, everybody. We're going to start here. We're going to do this. And I've tried to like ingrain in them the importance of that, the importance of really like leading in a clear and effective way that not only helps, the musicians know what's to come, but also gives you that feeling of I'm leading this right now.
Yeah.
It's hard. And some people are naturally good at that. Some people are really naturally good leaders and other people aren't. Yeah.
Well, you know what it is, John? The singers, when they're having trouble with that, I feel like they feel like they, not that they don't deserve attention, but they feel like they shouldn't take that time to lead, to count off. They shouldn't. The musicians don't want them to. They don't. Not that they don't deserve it, but it's not right somehow. They're. And so I have a young student now who's 15. I don't generally teach young people that much, but she's very good, and she's building up and up, and yeah, and also there's that student thing. You tell your students like 5 things that are really important, and then they hear it, but then somebody else comes and teaches class and says those 5 things, and then the student goes, oh wow. So but you're kind of setting up the bottom layer. It's like, okay, here are these 5 things. And anyway, so for her, I was telling her these kind of things because she's singing with an ensemble. The leader of the ensemble, the teacher, wasn't paying any attention to her. He didn't even get her sound so that she could actually hear herself. So she couldn't hear herself with the ensemble.
Yeah.
And okay, I said, you have to hear yourself, and you have to tell him you need to hear yourself.
Right.
And it wasn't until a sub taught the class that she actually had that experience,
Right.
So, yeah, it's really interesting.
Yep.
Taylor's asking about your teaching philosophy. Do you find that you change here and there with what you do?
Yeah. I just like to keep it simple. I think that I like showing students that I'm always learning and that I'm in process too, and try to like maybe hint at some of the pitfalls. I feel like some of the mistakes we make early on when we're learning this music, or finding shortcuts here or there when really it's about practicing, it's about spending time with the music, it's about finding your passion and falling in love with the music, and we all fall in love with it in different ways. Some of us maybe only listen to certain kind of certain era, a certain period of jazz, or some of us listen to the most cutting edge thing that's out right now, and some of us don't listen to anything that was recorded after 1959, but or 1968 or whatever. But yeah, I try to keep it real simple, and yeah, I've been very fortunate with my teaching that I've been able to have some teaching now that I can really kind of lean into for the long haul. at Pierce College, and have kind of a home for me that is like, it feels like this is where I'm going to be teaching now for the duration. And you know, I like teaching group stuff more than private stuff. I like teaching a group of students together. And yeah, I'm also trying to just instill in students that when we're honing our craft, when we're working on what skills we can naturally develop, but also like really push and pull out of us that maybe don't come natural to us, while we're doing that and while we're going on this journey of finding our sound or finding the thing that we want to be doing, always be in service of others. So always be setting yourself up to help someone else realize their musical goal too. Because if you're somebody that's just going to be sitting on a desert island posting on Instagram all day long what you can do, not helping other people do their music, you're going to have a really tough go of it. But if you're somebody who's like, hey, I want to collaborate, you know, I want to do a clinic with you, I want to do a workshop with singers, I want to, you know, go play in a band with an actor and go play on a big stage and do shows for big audiences, you know, just being in the service mindset rather than the, wow, this is, I want to build my career and build my name and be well known.
Yeah.
I think is something that we can teach musicians at a very early age, you know, teach them at a very, when they're just starting on their path of like serious music education.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Well, I have a, I'm sure this is good. I'm not even going to tell you what it is yet.
Huh.
I feel sure this is good.
Oh man, I remember this. This was Nick. Yeah, that's right. Oh yeah. Oh man. that's Eric Sittner.
Oh, Eric Sittner. I haven't seen him much. I don't know him that well.
Yeah, that was a few years ago. That was a fun day. I remember that. Yeah, it was for like a microphone company. It was something. Yeah, like I think it was a mic company that we were doing some product demos for. So yeah, that's fun.
Pretty cool. Yeah, John Tegmeyer is another amazing musician here in LA.
Yep.
Amazing clarinetist. Wow.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's see. Well, we're coming towards the latter part of the time we're talking. Is there anything you want to talk about or tell us about? I mean, there's the new record with Jeff Goldblum coming out.
Yep.
And you're kind of on tour with that. And anything you're gonna put out your record again? Is that what you're gonna do?
Well, yeah, I've got some ideas. Just kind of stirring the pot right now. Perhaps I'll get something out by the end of this year, maybe early next year. But yeah, I've got some of my own stuff I'm working on, the stuff with Jeff that's coming up. It's gonna be really fun summer. Again, we're playing, with a couple gigs coming up here. We've got with New West before Memorial Day. We're down at the Muckenthaler, and then in July, I'm at Segerstrom Hall with Goldblum. So those are going to be some really fun shows. But yeah, I just, if anybody's catching this, who's here in our scene, I feel so grateful. I love our scene in LA. I think we've got a really great cohort of musicians that are just all kind of, everybody's always kind of collaborating with one another. That through the years as venues come and go, there still seems to be a scene that's intact. I'm just grateful to be a part of it, and I'm always down to play with other people, and get to meet other musicians. I've been on the road a lot recently, but I'll be around a little bit into the summer. So yeah, keep in mind for that stuff. And other than that, yeah, again, I just thanks for organizing this, Cathy, and for having me and asking me to do it. And yeah, keep me posted. I'd love to do one date at Kulak's Woodshed, like we were talking about too. Maybe we can organize that for the summer or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Tom Rizzo is coming this month.
Oh, cool.
Brad Rabuchin the following month, and Pat Kelly is coming down.
Oh, nice.
And Beth Marlis is going to do one.
Great.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's fun. And one of these days, we'll have a memorial for Barry Zweig, where I keep talking about it, but Malika, his daughter, doesn't really want to do it indoors because she doesn't want to be responsible for people possibly catching COVID still. So we're kind of,
Yeah.
I don't know what year we'll do that, but it doesn't really matter because, people who loved Barry will show up,
Yep. Yes, indeed. Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, I'll sign off now, and I'll tell people this is a good week for some music that I'm involved in this week here. Tonight there's a jazz singer showcase, which Aviva Diamond and Karen Kuzer put together at Kulak's. And Thursday night is Vinnie Golia, who John knows. Vinnie Golia is an incredible artist. He's a multi-woodwindist and who's been doing it for years, and he's led a creative new music, which is kind of leaning towards avant-garde. It's kind of hard to talk about it. It's improvised, but it's not without form. Anyway, he's taught at Cal Arts for a long time. The band is so incredible. The drummer, I'm totally in love with. The drummer is just fascinating to me. I wonder if you know him. Let me. His name is not super known to me. Let's see. Da, 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 da. Where are we? Let's see if I actually. Yeah, well, it's Edwin Livingston is playing,
Oh yeah.
Steve Blum on piano, Chris Tyner on trumpet, and Clint Dodson.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm in love with that guy. Wow, he's
Yeah.
really interesting. Anyway, that's Thursday night. So I'm trying to do the second Thursdays with Vinny,
Cool.
creative new music, and first Thursday is a Brazilian, third or guitar, and then after that's kind of the art of the duo with a singer and either piano or guitar, and um, and then Friday, these guys who are came in for the NAM show. It's a very interesting group.
Mm-hmm.
Eldon Kelly, and it's real eclectic. It's going to be at the G Spot. You've played there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can see that on my Facebook. It's really should be a really interesting group. Really, really good. And the G Spot is a great home venue that we love here in LA. And then Saturday, our friends Larry Kuntz on guitar and Michelle Nicole, who's an award-winning jazz vocalist from Australia, really good. And Sunday, I'm actually, if you guys are into seeing, experiencing a charity event for, it's called the Loving Home Hospice, which is the only hospice for children that exists, and entirely for children. And so it's out in Woodland Hills in the daytime, and there's going to be several different groups, including Greg Karukas and me, and I have a really fun group: Mitchell Long, Leo Nobre, and Joey DeLeon.
Cool.
That's going to be silly fun. And if you're interested in that, you can see that on my page too. And next week, my live people are Joe Gaeta on guitar. Do you know him?
Yes. Yeah.
He's an old friend of mine.
Cool. Joe's
And
great.
Ben Rosenblum
Mm-hmm.
and Chris Bailey, the drummer, who is a very eclectic drummer and played with a lot of big people. Not necessarily jazz all the time, but he's really a cool guy. So that's it. You know, everybody, thanks for being here. John, thanks for giving me so much time because it is a bunch of time, and you're on the road, so you're going.
Oh
on the-
no, this was great. I honestly, it just feels so good to be here at my desk right now. After the last few weeks, it's been pretty intense, and these next couple weekends will be fun. But yeah, no, when you asked about today, it was perfect because I just kind of wanted to just chill here. I've got to run over to East LA College now and teach my class over there,
Oh.
and then come home and pack and go back to LAX. You know,
Well,
just
safe
can't get
travel.
away from that place.
I hope the traveling is good, you know, and
Thanks.
yeah, I hope you have a great time. And I'm going to email you, you know, in a week or two, and maybe we can get some dates going on.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, well, thank you again, and thanks Taylor for all the questions, buddy. And yeah, again, thanks for having me, and drop me a line here if anybody has anything else, or I hope to see everybody out and about here as we get into the summer.
Okay, cool.